If we're going to survive as humans in this world, we need trees. We need the oxygen they produce. We also need them for building materials. So there's been a pretty close relationship between us humans and trees since the beginning of our existence. And there's one art form that embodies that symbiotic relationship between people and trees like nothing else. Woodblock printing. Woodblock printing is an ancient art form in which a design is carved into a block of wood and then ink is applied to the raised areas to create a stamp-like impression. It dates back thousands of years in many different cultures, but today we're focusing specifically on Japanese woodblock printing, or mokuhanga. The history of mokuhanga is long and rich. Its origins can be traced back to China, where woodblock printing was used as early as the 6th century to print textiles. But it was in Japan where the art form really took root. The earliest known example of Japanese woodblock printing is a Buddhist text printed in the 7th or 8th century. But the roots of modern mokuhanga can be found in the 16th century with the arrival of Western missionaries who brought with them a new technology, a movable type printing press. This innovation allowed Japanese artists to explore new possibilities with woodblock printing, including the production of illustrated books and single sheet prints. The first major flowering of mukaka came during the Momohama period, which lasted from the 1470s to 1600. During this time, wealthy landowners known as daimyo commissioned artists to produce large-scale woodblock prints for their amusement. These prints often featured scenes from Chinese and Japanese literature, as well as depictions of nature and landscapes. Some of the most famous Momoyama-era woodblock prints were produced by artists such as Tawaraya Sotatsu and Hishikawa Morinobu. Their work set the stage for the great age of Japanese woodblock printing that was to come. In the early Edo period, which began in 1603, the woodblock printing industry was largely controlled by a small number of wealthy merchants. However, by the mid-Edo period, it had become a much more democratic enterprise. With the rise of the floating world or ukiyo, a new class of urban pleasure seekers known as townspeople or chonin began to patronize woodblock printing. They commissioned images of actors, courtesans, and scenes from everyday life. This shift in patronage led to the emergence of a new style of woodblock printing that was more focused on the common people and their interests. One of the most famous artists of this period was Kitagawa Utamaro, whose prints often depicted beautiful women in elegant poses. Another prominent artist was Shuraku Toyokuni, who specialized in portraits of actors. But perhaps the most iconic figures of the ukiyo era were the so-called Masters of the Three Friends: Utagawa Hiroshige, Tsukioka Chacho, and Andu Choko. These three artists dominated the woodblock printing industry in the early 19th century, and their influence on later generations of Japanese artists was enormous. Hiroshi's most famous series are his depictions of famous locations throughout Japan, such as his 55-image Birds of a Feather, 1834-35, and his 55-image series of famous places in the provinces, 1842-43. Another of his most famous series is his depiction of the 36 views of Mount Fuji. Completed in 1856, just before the fall of the Tokugawa shogunate, it contains some of the most iconic images in all of Japanese art, such as the red Fuji, the blue Fuji, and the 100 views of Mount Fuji. Today, woodblock printing is still a popular art form in Japan and around the world. Artists continue to experiment with this traditional technique, pushing its boundaries and creating stunning works of art that celebrate the unique beauty of woodblock printing. Woodblock printing, or mokuhanga, is a centuries-old art form that has deep roots in Japanese culture. It is a process by which an image is carved into a wooden block, which is then used to stamp ink onto paper or fabric to create a design or pattern. Mokuhanga is thought to have originated in China, where it was used to print textiles. However, it was in Japan where the art form truly flourished. The process of woodblock printing involves several key elements. First, the artist must choose a high-quality block of wood, which is typically made from cherry, cypress, or maple. The wood is then carved with a sharp knife or chisel to create the design. The artist will typically carve away all of the areas that they want to be white or unprinted, leaving the design raised on the block. Once the carving is complete, the block is then inked using a special type of ink that adheres to the raised areas of the design. The inked block is then pressed against a sheet of paper or fabric to transfer the image. This process can be repeated multiple times to create multiple copies of the same design. Woodblock printing has been used to create a wide variety of works of art, including books, posters, textiles, and paintings. In Japan, it was particularly popular for creating illustrations for books and magazines. During the Edo period, a thriving market for woodblock prints emerged featuring images of actors, wrestlers, and courtesans. Some of the most famous Japanese woodblock prints were created during this time by artists such as Kitagawa Utamaro and Utagawa Hiroshige. Western artists also began experimenting with woodblock printing in the late 19th century. One of the most famous examples of Western woodblock printing is a series of 12 prints depicting scenes from Dante's Inferno by French artist Gustave Doré. Today, woodblock printing is still practiced by artists around the world. Many contemporary artists use the technique to create unique and innovative works of art. The process of carving the wooden block and applying the ink by hand allows for a level of craftsmanship and artistry that cannot be achieved through mass production methods. There are two main types of mukahanga, traditional and modern. Traditional mukahanga follows the methods and techniques that were developed during the Edo period in Japan. This includes the use of a single block of wood for each color in the print and the use of hand-carved letters for the text. Modern mukahanga, on the other hand, allows for more flexibility and experimentation. Artists may use multiple blocks of wood to create a single print, or they may use machine-carved letters to add text. Some modern mukahanga artists even incorporate collage or other mixed media into their work. No matter what style of woodblock printing is used, the process is always laborious and time-consuming. Carving the wooden block by hand is a delicate and precise job that requires skill and patience. Applying the ink and pressing the block onto the paper must be done carefully to avoid smudging or warping the print. But the end result can be truly stunning. A well-executed woodblock print is a thing of beauty, combining the precision of the carving with the richness of the ink and the texture of the paper to create a unique work of art. Now, let's talk about why woodblock printing is such a significant part of Japanese culture. For centuries, it was one of the most important methods for reproducing images in Japan. Before the advent of photography, woodblock printing was used to create illustrations for books, magazines, and posters. It was also a popular form of art in its own right, with prints of actors, wrestlers, and courtesans being particularly popular. The high demand for woodblock prints led to the development of a sophisticated industry with skilled artisans, producing works of art that are still admired today. In addition to its cultural significance, woodblock printing also played an important role in the development of Japanese art. The techniques used in woodblock printing, such as the use of multiple blocks to create a single image, allowed artists to experiment with new styles and techniques that would not have been possible with other forms of art. It also helped to promote the work of Japanese artists, both domestically and internationally. But if you've made it this far into the video, you're probably wondering how you can support us here at Art School. Well, there are a couple ways you can do just that. First way is simple. All you have to do is subscribe. Subscribing lets the platform know that you enjoy what we redoing here and that you want to see more of it. And don't worry, if you change your mind later, you can always unsubscribe. but hopefully you won't after seeing what we have planned for the future. Second, if you enjoy reading, we recently started a newsletter that recaps some of our favorite moments from the previous month. It's a fun way to get more updates about the channel while supporting us. And finally, we want to give a huge shout out to everyone already subscribed. You guys make what we do here possible, and we appreciate every single one of you. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you haven't already.